Vanessa had spent months staring at herself in the mirror, picking apart every flaw. Her stomach wasn't flat enough, her hips weren't wide enough, and her backside wasn't full enough. She wasn't ugly, not by any means, but she wasn't the kind of beautiful that got attention either. And attention was currency. She had seen it with her own eyes. Tasha, her best friend, had done a BBL 6 months ago, and life had changed for her overnight. Before the surgery, she was just another girl. Now, men tripped over themselves to impress her. She had more brand deals, free trips, and strangers sliding into her DMs, calling her a queen. Vanessa wanted that. She wanted to walk into a room and be noticed. For months, she saved every extra coin, skipped out on small luxuries, and finally, she had enough. The expensive clinics in the city were out of reach, but she had found one that promised the same results at half the price, Dr. Bello's clinic. A few girls she followed on Instagram had been there. Their before and after pictures were proof. Snatched waists, round hips, the kind of bodies that made people stop scrolling. It was time. The clinic was smaller than she expected, tucked between rundown buildings in a part of town she normally wouldn't visit. The waiting room smelled of disinfectant, the kind that didn't mask anything but instead made everything feel clinical and hollow. The receptionist barely looked up as she handed over her paperwork. The forms were long, full of medical jargon she didn't understand, but she signed them all anyway. She had come too far to back out now. Dr. Bello was charming, his smile too perfect, his voice too smooth. He explained the procedure as if it were a simple haircut. He promised her a new body and new life. Vanessa wanted to believe him. She left the clinic with a surgery date and a racing heartbeat. It was happening. The morning of the surgery, Vanessa barely slept. Her body buzzed with nervous energy, a mix of fear and excitement. At the clinic, they prepped her quickly. The gown was cold against her skin, the 4 needles sharper than she expected. The room smelled sterile. She lay back on the table as the anesthesia took hold. Darkness swallowed her whole. Vanessa woke up the next day in pain. A deep, dragging ache that seemed to come from inside her. Her body felt heavy, foreign. She could barely move. The room was dim, the beeping of machines the only sound. She tried to sit up, but the pain was unbearable. It wasn't just soreness from surgery. It was something deeper, something she couldn't explain. The nurse told her to rest, that everything was fine. The next day, they sent her home. She thought the worst was over. She was wrong. The weakness didn't go away. Vanessa expected some discomfort, but this was different. Her body felt drained. She was always tired, always dizzy. Every step felt like wading through water. Her skin was paler than before. Her lips, dry no matter how much water she drank. The pain in her lower back pulsed, deep and unrelenting. One night, she collapsed trying to reach the bathroom. Tasha found her on the floor, barely conscious, her breath shallow. By the time she opened her eyes, she was in the hospital. The hospital smelled different from the clinic. It felt safer. Machines hummed softly around her, and the lights were too bright. The doctor's face was kind but serious when he walked in with her test results. She didn't expect what he said next. "One of your kidneys is missing." The words didn't make sense at first. Missing. As if it had never been there. As if it had simply vanished. Her mind raced back to the surgery. The clinic. The form she had signed without reading. She had gone in for a BBL. She had come out missing a piece of herself. At first, she thought it was a mistake. Maybe the doctor was wrong. Maybe she had been born with only one kidney and never knew. But the test showed otherwise. Her body had once housed 2 kidneys. Now it only had one. She tried to piece it together. The exhaustion, the unrelenting pain, the strange feeling in her gut. She had been healing from more than just cosmetic surgery. They had taken something from her. Not fat, not just tissue, an organ, and she had never agreed to it. How? Why? The realization settled over her like a weight she couldn't lift. She had trusted them. She had laid on that table, vulnerable and defenseless, and they had stolen from her. Not just her kidney, her trust, her body, her safety. She wasn't just a patient. She was a victim. and she wasn't sure if she would ever feel whole again. Tasha was pacing by the window when Vanessa was discharged. Neither of them spoke much. Tasha drove in silence. When they finally reached her apartment, Vanessa collapsed onto the couch, her body heavy, her thoughts heavier. Then, Tasha broke the silence. "Babe," she whispered, sitting beside her. "We need to do something." Vanessa didn't respond. Because what could she do? Go back to the clinic? They would deny it. They would wave her signed forms in her face. Call the police? What would she even say? That she signed up for surgery, and now she had one less organ? The next morning, Vanessa scrolled through her phone, looking for anything. Any woman who had gone to the same clinic and experienced something strange. She typed Dr. Bello clinic complaints into the search bar. At first, nothing. Then, a forum post buried under pages of glowing reviews. "Something is wrong with this place. I went in for a tummy tuck. Came out weaker than I've ever been. If you felt the same, please respond. We need to talk." A single reply beneath it. "You're not alone." Vanessa's hands went cold. She clicked on the username. The woman hadn't posted much, but there was an email address. A part of her hesitated, but then she thought about the pain, the exhaustion, the missing part of herself. She started typing. "I think they took something from me too." She hit send, and then she waited. Vanessa didn't expect a reply right away. She thought she would have to wait days, maybe weeks, before the woman saw her message. But the response came within hours. "Meet me tomorrow, Café Royale, 3 p.m. We need to talk." Café Royale was small, tucked away on a quiet street. Vanessa and Tasha arrived early, choosing a table near the window. Every time the door opened, Vanessa tensed. Then she saw her. A woman, maybe in her 30s, slim with tired eyes and a wary expression. She looked around before walking over to their table. "You're Vanessa?" Vanessa nodded. The woman sat down. "My name is Diana." She didn't bother with pleasantries. She got straight to the point. "They took my kidney too," she said. Vanessa's breath caught in her throat. "I went to Dr. Bello's clinic for a tummy tuck 2 years ago," Diana continued. "At first, I didn't notice anything. I thought the fatigue was just part of recovery, but I never got better. I was always tired, always dizzy. Then, one day I collapsed at work. They took me to the hospital, and that's when I found out." Tasha leaned forward. "Why hasn't anyone done anything?" Diana let out a bitter laugh. "Because who would believe us? We signed the forms. Somewhere in all that fine print, we probably gave them permission without even knowing it." Vanessa's mind flashed back to that day. The endless pages, the quick signatures. She had been too eager, too trusting. And now she was paying the price. Diana wasn't the only one. Over the next few days, Vanessa and Tasha met more women. Each had a different story, but the same ending. Fatigue, pain, a visit to the hospital, the discovery that something had been taken. Some of them had tried to fight back. They had gone to the police, to lawyers, to the press. Nothing came of it. The clinic had money, power, connections, and the women, they were just victims of their own choices. That's what people said. They shouldn't have gone to a cheap clinic. They should have read the forms. They should have known better. Vanessa couldn't let it go. She had lost a piece of herself, and she couldn't get it back. But maybe she could stop it from happening to someone else. Tasha and Diana sat in her apartment, their voices low as they planned. "We need proof," Diana said. "Real proof. Not just stories, something that ties them directly to organ trafficking." Vanessa thought about Dr. Bello's smooth voice, the way he had reassured her, knowing exactly what he was taking. She clenched her fists. "I'll go back. I'll act like I want a revision. A touch-up. Something small. I'll go in and record everything." Vanessa scheduled an appointment. She felt sick walking back into that clinic, but she forced herself to smile as she sat in the waiting room. When Dr. Bello walked in, she almost flinched. "Vanessa," he said smoothly, as if he remembered every single one of his patients. "What can I do for you?" She played her part well, pretending to be just another girl chasing perfection. As he spoke, she tapped her phone, starting the recording, and then she pushed. "How do you keep your prices so low?" she asked casually. "Most places charge double." Dr. Bello smiled. We have our ways. Her skin crawled, but she kept her face neutral, nodding along, acting interested. She left that day without making a scene, her phone heavy in her pocket, because now she had something. A start. And she wasn't stopping until she got justice. The next morning, Vanessa called a journalist. The journalist was younger than Vanessa expected. Sharp eyes, a voice that carried weight. He listened carefully, nodding as Vanessa spoke. Then he said, "This isn't enough, but it's a start." Vanessa didn't expect it to be easy. Over the next few days, she sent the journalist everything. Her medical reports, screenshots from other victims, every piece of information she had gathered. The journalist dug deeper. He found cases of missing supplies, records that didn't add up, connections to bigger names. It wasn't just one doctor. It wasn't just one clinic. It was bigger. And it was dangerous. The story broke. Headlines screamed about stolen organs, secret networks, women who had lost parts of themselves without knowing. Vanessa's name was everywhere. Dr. Bello's clinic shut down overnight, and he was nowhere to be found. No arrest, no trial, no justice, just an empty clinic and rumors that he had fled. It wasn't enough, but it was something. And maybe that was all she could hope for. Vanessa stood at her window, watching the world move on. Her body would never be the same, but her story had made sure no one else would suffer in silence. That had to be enough, even if it would never feel like it.